There arrives a time in every person's life when they understand that they are not battling against the world anymore, but rather they are fighting for their own peace. You get to a specific point where arguments just exhaust you, explaining yourself feels like it is not needed, and trying to prove who you are becomes a misuse of your energy. You learn that not every act of disrespect deserves a reaction from you. Not every insult requires a reply back, and not every fight is worth stepping onto the battlefield for. The exact moment you understand this is the moment you start to take back your power. Being silent is not being weak. Being silent is a plan. Being silent is discipline. Being silent is self-respect. You should whisper so loud that the entire room hears it without a single word actually leaving your mouth. People usually expect noise when they try to provoke you. They expect you to get angry when they disrespect you. They expect chaos, a reaction, and drama. But when you give them silence instead, you confuse them, you disarm them, and you rise above them. This speech is about understanding the quiet type of strength. It is about learning that your silence can speak for you, heal you, protect you, and lift you up if you learn how to use it properly. Let us look at this through several powerful truths. Silence is one of those strengths that develops inside you as time passes. When you are younger, you feel like every single comment needs a response. Every insult needs a defense. Every challenge needs to be faced head on. You think that speaking louder makes you stronger, as if high volume equals power. But somewhere along the journey, life teaches you a lesson you did not know you needed to learn. Maturity speaks with a different voice, and most of the time that voice is quiet. Silence becomes your shield, your self-control, and your statement that you will no longer waste energy proving yourself to people who were never really listening to begin with. When someone disrespects you, they are not always doing it because they want the truth. Most of the time, they just want a reaction out of you. They want to pull you out of your character. They want to shake your peace just to feel like they have some power over you. They poke at you not to communicate, but to trigger you. But when you choose silence, when you stand still, calm, and collected, you take away the only thing they were looking for. You take away the power they hoped to steal from you. Silence tells them you are not playing their game anymore. You are not stepping into the ring. You are not spiraling into arguments that lead to nowhere. You have stepped into a different version of yourself, one that does not need noise to prove its strength. Think about how you used to move in the past. You argued with everybody. You defended your name at every turn. If someone disrespected you, you were ready. If someone lied about you, you were right there setting the record straight. If someone said something rude, you had 3 comebacks lined up without taking a breath. But you learned piece by piece that all those arguments did not build you up. They drained you. They took from you. They made you feel good in that moment, but left you exhausted in the long run. Because the truth is, defending your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you is just another form of giving away your peace for free. Peace is expensive. And the older you get, the more you realize you cannot afford to keep giving it to everyone. You start valuing your mental space. You start choosing your battles. You start understanding that not every disrespect deserves your energy. And that shift, that growth is what separates maturity from acting without thinking. There is a story that captures this perfectly. A boss was giving a presentation at a big conference. In the middle of it, someone stood up and insulted him in front of everyone. It was loud, disrespectful, and unnecessary. The whole room turned to see how the boss would respond. People were expecting a sharp comeback, a fight, or maybe even anger. But he did not give them any of that. He stayed silent for a moment, smiled, and continued his presentation as if the interruption meant nothing. He did not defend himself. He did not acknowledge the insult. He did not give it power. Afterwards, someone asked him why he did not respond, and his answer was simple but deep. If I stop to throw stones at every barking dog, I will never reach my destination. That is what maturity looks like. Knowing where you are going, knowing what matters, knowing what is worthy of your response and what is not. Because the truth is, people will try to distract you with noise. They will throw disrespect at you just to see if you will break your focus. They will try to pull you down to their level because they cannot rise to yours. But silence tells them you have outgrown the conversation. You have outgrown the pettiness. You have outgrown the need to prove yourself to people who do not even matter in the long story of your life. Silence does not say you are scared. It does not say you are weak. It does not say you do not have a response. It says you are focused. It says you have bigger things to accomplish. It says you refuse to let someone else's insecurity become your burden. When you stay silent, you tell the world, my mission is more important than this moment. And trust me, people hear that message loud and clear even without you speaking. When someone tries to get a rise out of you and you do not react, it unsettles them because silence is unpredictable. Silence is powerful. Silence is uncomfortable for those who rely on chaos. They expected an argument. They expected drama. They expected you to fall into the trap. But instead, you keep your calm, you keep your presence, you keep your dignity. And nothing frustrates a disrespectful person more than realizing they do not have access to your emotions. As you grow, you learn something else. Your silence is not just about ignoring disrespect. It is about protecting your purpose. You cannot chase dreams and chase arguments at the same time. You cannot build a future while fighting with people stuck in the past. You cannot rise higher while letting every insult pull you back down. Silence becomes the wall around your focus. It blocks the distractions. It filters out the noise. It keeps you aligned with where you are going, not where someone else is trying to drag you. Silence also shows control. It shows you are not ruled by sudden urges. It shows your emotions do not run you, you run them. And that level of emotional strength commands respect from people who understand growth. Even your enemies start respecting you, not because you gave them a response, but because you did not. Because silence says something no argument ever can. I know who I am. And the most powerful part of it all is this: silence hits harder than any comeback ever will. A comeback feeds the moment, but silence feeds your spirit. A comeback wins the argument, but silence wins your peace. A comeback gives them what they want, but silence gives you what you need. There comes a point in your journey where you stop looking back. You stop engaging in things that drain you. You stop letting people bait you to battles that do not belong to you. And in those moments when disrespect shows up looking for attention, you stay silent. Not because you cannot speak, but because you do not need to. That is when you will know you have reached a new level of maturity. When silence becomes your strength, your shield, your answer, your boundary. When noise no longer moves you, when arguments no longer tempt you, when disrespect no longer shakes you, that kind of silence is not weakness, it is evolution, it is self-control, it is wisdom, and it is the mark of someone who knows exactly where they are going and refuses to lose themselves along the way. Silence protects your energy and mental peace in ways most people never realize until life forces them to learn a lesson the hard way. When someone disrespects you, tries to provoke you, or invites you into an argument, they are not just looking for a reaction, they are looking for access. Access to your emotions, access to your focus, access to your inner world. And every time you respond without thinking, every time you let their words pull you off balance, you hand over a little piece of your peace. That is a price far too high for anyone to pay, especially when you are trying to grow, elevate, and protect the ground you fought to stand on. There is something powerful about that moment when you feel the anger rising in your chest, that familiar rush of heat that tells you someone has crossed the line. In the past, you might have responded instantly, ready to defend yourself, ready to match energy with energy because that is what you thought strength looked like. But maturity teaches you that strength is not in the reaction, it is in the restraint. Growth is when you learn that your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves a share of it. Psychologists talk about how immediate emotional reactions are often the least accurate reflections of what we truly want. They come from the instinctive part of the brain, the part built for survival, not wisdom. When someone provokes you and you fire back instantly, you are operating from a place of impulse, not intention. But when you choose silence, when you choose to pause, you give yourself a moment to breathe, to think, to decide. That moment changes everything. It shifts you from being controlled to being in control. Think about how many times you have reacted quickly and regretted it later. How many arguments could have been avoided? How many relationships could have been preserved? How many situations would have faded if you had just stayed quiet? Silence creates space, and in that space, clarity shows up. You start to see the truth behind the disrespect. You realize that most of the time it has nothing to do with you. It is a reflection of the other person's frustration, insecurity, or immaturity. Consider that moment at work when someone makes a passive-aggressive comment. You feel it hit you, you feel the urge to respond, to put them in their place, but then something inside you says, "Not today, not this time." You choose silence, you keep your calm state of mind, you keep your focus. You do not let your peace get hijacked by someone else's bad day or bruised ego, and suddenly the situation changes because you did not feed it, you did not give it life, you did not let their chaos become your chaos. There is a quiet dignity in that, a dignity that comes from knowing who you are and what matters more. When you stay silent in the face of disrespect, you show yourself and the world that your peace is not up for negotiation. You send a message that says, "I refuse to shrink myself to match your level." And trust me, people feel that message even when they do not hear a single word. Silence protects your heart. It keeps you from stepping into battles that are designed to drain you, not grow you. Some people argue not because they want a solution, but because they want attention, control, or approval. They push your buttons hoping you will break so they can say they were right about you all along. But when you refuse to engage, you take back all the power they thought they had. Silence protects your mind. It keeps your thoughts clear, your vision sharp, your purpose intact. Disrespect is loud, but your dreams are louder, and you cannot chase purpose while fighting pointless battles. Every argument you walk away from is energy redirected toward your goals. Every moment you choose peace is a moment you step closer to becoming the person you are meant to be. And above everything else, silence protects your spirit, your mission, your sense of self, your inner fire. Imagine your spirit as a light. Some people come to dim it, some come to steal it, and some come to test it. If you react to every flicker, you will burn out before you ever reach your destiny. But if you guard that light with discipline, with maturity, with silence, nothing outside of you can put out what is inside you. There is a reason wise people do not argue with fools. There is a reason strong people do not explain themselves to those who are not listening. There is a reason calm people do not let anger dictate their actions, because they know the truth that many never learn. Reacting gives the other person control. Silence keeps the control in your hands. Think about the times in your life when staying silent changed the outcome completely. Maybe an argument fizzled out because you did not feed the fire. Maybe a disrespectful person exposed their true character without you saying a word. Maybe someone who once had power over your emotions suddenly felt powerless because you refused to respond the way they expected. Silence is not about avoidance, it is about alignment. It aligns you with wisdom instead of acting without thinking. It aligns you with peace instead of chaos. It aligns you with your higher self instead of your wounded self. And when you operate from that place, you move differently, you think differently, you rise differently. People who master silence do not do it because they are weak. They do it because they are too strong to let anyone else dictate their emotional state. They have learned that not every disrespect requires a reaction. Not every provocation deserves an answer. Not every person has earned the right to access your inner world. Your peace is precious. Your energy is limited. Your mission is too important. Protect them with silence. There will always be noise around you, but you get to choose what becomes part of your life and what gets ignored. You get to decide what is worth your voice and what is not even worth your breath. Every day you choose silence over chaos. You preserve a little more of your strength. You build a little more of your character. You reinforce a little more of your self-control. And that adds up. That transforms you. That becomes the foundation of a more powerful, peaceful, unshakable version of yourself. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is protection. And when you understand the value of protecting your energy and mental peace, you stop reacting to every disrespect. You stop letting others dictate your mood. You stop giving away pieces of yourself to people who do not deserve them. You become selective, you become intentional, you become stronger, and the world notices even when you say nothing. Silence has a way of pulling back the curtain on people, exposing truths they work so hard to hide. When someone disrespects you, most of the time it is not because you did something wrong. It is because something inside them is unsettled. Insecurity has a strange way of disguising itself as arrogance, loudness, aggression, or fake confidence. People will make you feel small to make themselves feel taller. They will poke at your confidence to make their own feel less fragile. And the moment you choose silence instead of engagement, you hold up a mirror they never wanted to look into. There is a certain discomfort that rises in a person when they try to provoke you and you do not take the bait. You could almost see it in their eyes. They expected a reaction, a defense, a spark they could fan into a flame. But when you stay calm, when you stay composed, when your eyes do not shift and your tone does not rise, they are left with nothing but their own insecurity echoing back at them. And that silence, your silence, becomes the loudest truth in the room. Watch closely what happens when you do not react. They try again. They repeat the disrespect, thinking maybe you did not hear it the first time. They raise their voice, thinking volume will force validation. They exaggerate their behavior, trying to stir some kind of emotion out of you. And when you still do not respond, frustration starts to build inside them. Not because you are wrong, but because their insecurity can no longer hide behind your reaction. It is like they are performing on a stage, but the audience has stopped clapping, stopped watching, stopped caring. Suddenly, they are left alone with their own reflection. For insecure people, that is one of the most painful places to be. Silence strips away the performance. It exposes the intention behind the disrespect. And people who disrespect others rarely expect to be revealed. They operate best in environments where everyone reacts, everyone gets emotional, everyone plays along. But the one thing they cannot stand is someone who refuses to give them power. Think about relationships. How many times has someone tried to provoke you with jealousy, manipulation, or subtle digs, not because they wanted resolution, but because they needed reassurance that they still had emotional control over you? They say things designed to make you react, maybe bringing up someone else, maybe highlighting your insecurities, maybe minimizing your worth. But the moment you go silent, the moment you stop giving those tactics power, their need for approval becomes undeniable. They thought you would chase, argue, defend yourself. They thought you would fight to prove your value, but you did not. You stayed silent, and in that moment, their insecurity became louder than anything they said. People often mistake silence for weakness, but it is one of the most powerful tools you have. Silence says, I see what you are doing and I refuse to participate. Silence says, your opinion of me is not strong enough to shake who I am. Silence says, you do not get to control my emotions anymore. And when you send that message without speaking a single word, it hits deeper than any argument ever could. In friendships, the truth becomes even more clear. You will notice how silence exposes the ones who secretly compete with you, the ones who smile at your face but celebrate when you struggle, the ones who disguise shade as humor and envy as concern. They will make jokes about your life, your progress, or your decisions. And when you do not react, when you do not defend yourself, when you do not play along, something inside them shifts, their mask slips, even if just for a moment, because silence forces them to sit with the uncomfortable reality that their comments were not jokes at all. They were rooted in jealousy. And when you refuse to engage, their envy is revealed for everyone to see, even if no one says it aloud. Insecurity thrives in noise. It grows stronger when people react emotionally, when people fight back, when people argue. It feeds on the chaos it creates, but the moment you become silent, insecurity loses its cover. It is exposed, vulnerable, naked. It has nowhere to hide. That is why people try harder when you do not react. They are desperately trying to cover up the truth that your silence is revealing. Silence exposes agendas. Those who approached you with manipulation suddenly find themselves confused. Their strategies do not work anymore. Their games fall apart. They get irritated, even angry, because the reaction they were counting on is no longer there to fuel their sense of control. Silence exposes jealousy. People who pretended to be happy for you start to show the cracks in their smile. They try to provoke you because deep down they fear your growth, your potential, your rising confidence. When you stay silent, you are telling them that their attempts to dim your light did not work. Silence exposes immaturity. Those who thrive on confrontation, those who lack emotional control, those who depend on drama, they do not know what to do with someone who refuses to join their cycle. And your silence makes their lack of maturity painfully clear. You do not have to call people out when they disrespect you. You do not have to explain yourself, defend yourself, or prove anything. The world has a way of revealing truth without you lifting a finger. When you stay silent, you allow time, behavior, and consequences to do the speaking for you. The ones who are insecure, manipulative, or jealous will eventually show it. They always do. Silence is not just the absence of words, it is the presence of wisdom. It is the recognition that not every attack deserves a counterattack, not every insult deserves a defense, and not every insecure person deserves a seat at your emotional table. When you refuse to react, you force people to confront the part of themselves they were hoping to hide behind your response. And that is why silence is such a powerful revealer. It shows you who people truly are. It shows them who they truly are. And it shows everyone watching that your strength is not in how loud you can get, but in how deeply grounded you remain when someone tries to shake you. Silence does not protect the one who disrespected you. It exposes them. And every time you choose silence, you choose wisdom over warfare, peace over performance, and truth over ego. Silence is one of the most underestimated forms of strength in this world. People assume that if you do not speak immediately, you are unsure, you are scared, or you are being passive. But the truth is, silence is often the moment where true power gathers itself. It is the space between the trigger and the response where wisdom is born. When someone tries to provoke you, pressure you, or disrespect you, the instinct to react fast can be strong. Your emotions rise, your pride gets touched, and your mind wants to defend itself instantly. But reacting instantly is how you lose battles. You could have easily won by simply waiting, breathing, and thinking. Silence is not weakness. It is calculation. It is observation. It is the pause that prevents you from becoming your own enemy. There is a reason people say that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. Strength does not need to scream. Real power does not panic. It does not rush. It does not move out of emotion. It moves out of intention, and intention requires clarity, and clarity requires silence. When you learn to use silence to your advantage, You stop giving people the version of you that emotion creates and start giving them the version of you that wisdom shapes. That shift changes everything. Think about the leaders you admire, the thinkers who change the course of history, the people who handle pressure with grace. They do not rush their words. They do not let their emotions take the lead. They allow silence to fill the space so they can see the situation for what it truly is. They observe, they listen not just to what is being said, but to what is not being said. They analyze the intention behind the moment, the possible consequences behind the action, and the best response that aligns with who they are and where they are going. Silence buys them time. Time to think, time to breathe, time to choose rather than react. And in this life, choosing your response is a form of mastery. When you are silent, you start to notice the truth hidden behind the noise. You begin to understand that not every statement deserves a reply. Not every provocation deserves engagement, and not every moment requires your voice. Silence teaches you to separate emotion from action. It teaches you to ask yourself, if I react now, what will I lose? If I wait, what might I gain? That kind of thinking is what prevents unnecessary battles, misunderstandings, broken relationships, and regrets that could have been avoided with a simple pause. Think about the legal world. Lawyers tell their clients one thing over and over: stay quiet, not because they want them to appear weak, but because silence protects them from saying something driven by fear or emotion that could be used against them. Silence safeguards their future, and that is not just in court, that is in life. Your words can become evidence too. Evidence of your impatience, your anger, your insecurity, your lack of control. Silence keeps your power in your hands until you are ready to use it wisely. Emotionally intelligent people understand this. They pause before they speak. They do not let anger pull the trigger for them. They do not allow fear to push them into decisions they will regret. They let silence create a bridge between what they feel and what they choose to do. That bridge is where maturity lives. That bridge is where wisdom waits. And that bridge is what keeps you from stepping into situations blindfolded. In the real world, business, family, friendships, relationships, your reaction can build something or destroy something. You can lose deals because you spoke too fast. You can damage trust because you responded in anger. You can break your own peace because you allowed emotion to take the wheel. Silence helps you pause long enough to see the long-term impact of your next move. It gives you the space to say, let me think about who I want to be in this moment. There is a story about a man who was insulted in front of a crowd. Everyone waited for him to explode. Instead, he stayed silent. He listened. He remained calm. And after a moment, he simply walked away. People laughed, thinking he was weak. But later, when asked why he did not respond, he said, if I fought every battle, I would never have energy left for the war I am actually fighting. That is what silence gives you, the ability to see the bigger picture. Wisdom is never found in the first reaction. It is found in a second thought. Silence gives you access to that second thought. It lets you step back and look at the situation from a higher place. It turns your reaction into a response, one that protects your character rather than damages it. When you respond with wisdom instead of emotion, you protect your reputation. People begin to trust your judgment. They see you as steady, grounded, unshakable. They know you do not break easily. You do not get dragged into nonsense. You do not get manipulated by pressure. You become someone whose voice carries weight because it is not tossed out carelessly. It is delivered with purpose. You protect your future when you respond wisely. Opportunities stay open because you did not burn bridges out of anger. Relationships deepen because you did not react impulsively. You grow because you did not sabotage your own progress just to prove a point. Most importantly, you protect your inner peace. You do not let drama control your direction. You do not let other people's emotions dictate your behavior. You do not let disrespect force you out of character. Silence keeps your soul steady. It keeps your mind clear. It keeps your heart safe. Peace is not found in noise. It is found in the quiet moments where you choose strength over reaction. Silence is the space where clarity grows. It is where truth rises to the surface. It is where intention becomes visible. It is where wisdom whispers the answer you were too distracted to hear before. Every time you choose silence instead of reaction, you honor your journey, you honor your growth, you honor the person you are becoming. Silence is not about running away. It is not about fear. It is not about weakness. It is about choosing the version of yourself that is aligned with your purpose. It is about stepping back so you can step forward with intention. It is about responding with the kind of strength that does not need to be loud to be heard. When you learn to wait, to breathe, to think, to analyze before you speak, you stop losing battles that never mattered and start winning wars that shape your life. Silence has a way of turning the whole atmosphere around you into something different, something stronger, something undeniable. But when you stop reacting to everything and everyone, you send a message that echoes louder than any argument you could ever make. People start to feel something shift. When you no longer validate their attempts to provoke you, they do not hear your voice, but they feel your presence. They do not see your anger, but they notice your control. And suddenly, without you saying a thing, they start treating you differently. That is the quiet kind of respect, the kind you do not ask for, the kind you earn simply by choosing not to engage in anything beneath you. When you stop reacting, people stop playing with you. They stop testing your patience, poking at your insecurities, or pushing you into emotional corners because your silence becomes an unfamiliar territory to them. People who thrive on drama, manipulation, or emotional games rely on your reaction to feel powerful. The moment you stop giving them that reaction, they lose their grip. They do not know how to handle someone who refuses to dance to the rhythm of their chaos, and that confusion becomes the beginning of respect. Think about the things you no longer tolerate. You do not argue with people who twist your words or try to get a rise out of you. You do not chase explanations from people who already know the truth but pretend they do not. You do not beg to be understood by people who were never listening in the first place. You do not defend your worth to people who never saw your value until you withdrew your presence. Silence becomes your shield, but more importantly, it becomes your declaration. A declaration that says, I am not fighting for attention. I am not proving myself to anyone. I am not stepping down from my peace to meet you where your chaos lies. That kind of silence builds an invisible boundary, one that does not need to be spoken or written. It simply exists, and people feel it. They sense this shift when you decide that not everything deserves your energy, your voice, or your emotional space. It is like drawing a line in the sand that only maturity can see. The moment you embrace silence as a boundary, you start choosing who gets access to you, what gets your attention, and which battles are worthy of your time. Most people will not admit it, but silence makes them nervous because silence sends a message they cannot argue with. Imagine this: someone leaves a disrespectful comment on your social media. Maybe they are projecting their insecurities onto you. Maybe they are jealous. Maybe they want attention. You know what they are hoping for. They want you to defend yourself, snap back, or throw energy into a pointless back and forth. But instead, you do the mature thing. You delete it. Or maybe you leave it there, but you do not respond. You do not acknowledge it. You do not give them the reaction they are begging for. Then you get back to your work, your goals, your progress. That silence hurts them more than anything you could have typed because it tells them they do not have power. It tells them you are too focused to be derailed, too grounded to be shaken, too elevated to be brought down by noise, and that silent strength demands respect. In friendship, silence can be even more revealing. You do not expose the betrayal. You do not announce the distance. You do not make dramatic exits or speeches. You simply stop engaging. Stop feeding a bond that no longer feels authentic. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds. And that silence tells them everything. It says you have outgrown the games, the gossip, the inconsistencies. It says you are no longer the person who tolerates disrespect dressed as friendship. And without you confronting them, arguing with them, or calling them out, they feel the shift. They recognize the loss. They see exactly what they took for granted. Silence makes your absence louder than your presence ever was. In relationships, silence is even more powerful because it disrupts the emotional dynamic. People who once relied on triggering you suddenly realize you are not moved anymore. They try to guilt you, provoke you, or play the same old psychological games, but you do not respond. And that silence tells them something they were not ready to face. They no longer have control. They no longer influence your emotions. They no longer hold the power they once did. That is a different kind of heartbreak for someone accustomed to pulling your strings. Your silence becomes the breakup speech. They were not expecting the closure they did not ask for, the boundary they did not think you were capable of creating. In the world of business, silence is one of the most respected languages. The emotional person loses deals. The reactive person loses credibility. The one who can stay silent long enough to listen, observe, and respond with intention wins. Silence shows discipline. It shows composure. It shows professionalism. When you do not argue unnecessarily, when you do not allow emotions to lead your decisions, when you do not respond to every slight or every misunderstanding with fire, people recognize your strength. They see someone who has control, someone who respects themselves enough to remain steady, someone who cannot be manipulated or pressured into poor decisions. And that earns you respect from colleagues, clients, leaders, even competitors. Silence earns respect without you ever demanding it, because silence is presence, silence is confidence, silence is control, silence is emotional maturity in motion. You are not silent because you do not know what to say. You are silent because you understand that not everything deserves a response. You are silent because your energy is precious and you refuse to waste it. You are silent because you know that people reveal themselves when you stop reacting. You are silent because you are choosing peace over pettiness, growth over ego, and purpose over distraction. And when you master that level of silence, the silence that comes not from fear but from strength, not only do people stop testing you, they start respecting you. Not because you demanded it, but because you became someone they cannot shake, cannot provoke, and cannot control. Silence becomes the proof of your evolution, the evidence of your strength, the language of your maturity, and the unspoken force that commands respect everywhere you go. Silence is not the absence of a response. It is the response, a powerful one, a wise one, a disciplined one. When you master silence, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, nobody can pull you out of your character, your purpose, or your peace. So the next time someone disrespects you, remember your silence is louder than their noise. Your peace is stronger than their chaos, and your self-respect speaks louder than any argument ever could. Stay focused, stay grounded, stay in control.